Oh, that lady's voice is so soothing. Recording in progress. This
Welcome.
episode brought to you by Poker Plastics. Want a poker? Make it plastic.
All right. Welcome to Lost Copy. I'm Jason. This is Andy.
What's up?
Start things off with Manhunter this week, one of our all-time favorite movies. Um, what is it, 1986?
86, yes.
86, Michael Mann. It stars uh, William Petersen as Will Graham. They didn't want to make it too hard for him, so they just kept the same name. Um, it's awesome actually. Won't go too far into it just because it's basically the start of Hannibal Lecter.
Yep.
That's his first appearance in movies. Um, but for me, it's not about Hannibal Lecter at all. It's all about Will Graham and going crazy, and um, William Petersen's performance is one of my favorites. Probably it's he's
Well, that's what's funny about it is that I don't think people knew who the hell William Peterson was at the time. And so, like, I think that's why it did not cash in at the box office or catch on until later because people are like, who the hell's William Petersen? Like, back then you had to have a star in a movie. Like that was when Rambo was going on and all that shit. So, like, I think that's what turned people off. And there were other people in it, like Dennis Farina, Brian Cox, Joan Allen, but none of them were famous at the time. I mean, even Tom Noonan was, who's behind you, by the way, um, wasn't in movies. And I think that's why it just didn't catch on. Like I don't even remember it being released in theaters. And
yeah.
I was 14 at the time, and I was 14 at the time. So like and I don't know, maybe it was and I just didn't pay attention, but I don't even remember it being in theaters.
Yeah, I don't remember it being in theaters either. And
Although we lived in Ohio, so
if anything, Dennis Farina is probably he might have been. I don't know exactly the time frame of when that TV show TV show Crime Story was. Do you remember
oh
that?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Right. He was
he
big
was
for that.
he was huge on that TV show.
Right on.
Um, so he might have been technically like the biggest star in this movie.
Yeah. Harvey
Um,
Keitel, no, he's in the new one. Interestingly enough, Chris Elliott's in this film. Like, what the hell?
Absolutely,
The
and like
cabin boys, like at the FBI table.
and a straight role, like not
It's
comedic,
so bizarre.
which is like kind of it's distracting when you know who Chris Elliott is. Like that's the only part in the movie where you're like,
Yes,
oh, I just slipped out of like my suspension of reality for a second because like this is what
it's Chris Elliott.
he's that
No,
much.
anyway, it's the movie basically the movie's really simple, and that's what's brilliant about it. Like, obviously, this guy had some issues, left the FBI. Farina goes to the beach, as you can see behind me in the opening scene. He's like, "Look, there's multiple murders going on. There's a serial killer. Can you please come back?" He's like, "No, but yes." Then he comes back and he becomes obsessed very quickly, and these are all happening in Atlanta, Georgia at the time. And then he just becomes obsessed with finding this guy, who, eventually calls himself the Red Dragon. But it's the way that he goes about the obsession. Like, for example, the scene where he's jogging and it's slow motion and it's at night and he like takes down that guy and it just happens to be some jogger and he's like, I'm sorry, man, I'm Will fucking Graham, like stuff like that. Like just the way he goes about the quest to find this guy. It's because from the beginning what the story is there's no twist. This is not M. Night fucking Shyamalan ding dong. It's just straight up like, look, we're bringing back Will Graham because no one else can do it but Will Graham, even though he's fucking crazy. We're gonna roll and it's such a simple premise. So anyway, it's not hard to follow. Like I said, it's just the way he does it and it's the performances. Anyway, so but I think it's one of his best movies. I would say and I'll go back to you after this. I would say my favorite Michael Mann movies, not in any particular order, would be Heat, Collateral, and Manhunter. And
Yeah,
Thief would be a close fourth, but I can't put it in the top three.
yeah, yeah. And he did To Live and Die in L.A., right? Is that
Yeah, no, that was Friedkin.
that's Freakin'? That's right.
Peterson was in it,
Billy.
but that was Bill
Yeah,
Friedkin.
that's
Oh,
Bill Carrington.
speaking of creepy, we could do a whole episode of Willem Dafoe's character in that film.
Or just Willem Dafoe. Um,
Whoa,
the man himself,
Willem Dafoe.
the freak. Um,
Yep, Freakazoid.
yeah, I like. I was gonna say like I really like in this movie in particular how creepy, and I know it's like creep factor is one of our things. Like this is like the highest one. Like
Oh,
Frankie
no doubt.
Hyde is like the litmus test of how far are you going to be a freak. Like everything from his like silk shirts to that landscape behind him, the Mars landscape with his
The
trouble.
Mars, the multi. Oh, his favorite band was obviously the Mars Volta.
He's
It's like everything Mars, Mars bar,
like
Mars wallpaper.
he's like I love the Astros. Like he he's just so creepy all the way through just because he's got like somehow he's petting a tiger in there at one time in the movie he's petting a
With a
rat
blind lady.
with a blind lady. He's got the silk on. His disguise is that weird pantyhose behind me. It's full disguise. Like that's it. He just puts on
Well,
and it's terrifying. Like
it
I
is.
see that. And if I saw somebody pop up behind me or anywhere like that, he's going to get
Oh,
the reaction he wants, which is pure terror.
and he's like 6'5". That's the thing.
Yeah,
He's like,
yeah.
and
Like
he's like 6'5". But the
this is
best part
life
about it
size behind me.
is yeah, you don't know why he's fucking nutso. They never tell you. That's the
No,
brilliance of it. There, he just like, look, I'm
yeah,
crazy. I'm 6'5". I kill people. Deal with it. No backstory. What?
no backstory, and he's like,
What?
and he's just, and he's really, he's pretty pissed off that everybody else doesn't know about the fact that he's the Red Dragon,
Yeah,
um,
he wants people to know.
which he's told nobody, and nobody's ever there's never been any writing about any of it, and he's just like, dude, this sucks.
It's
Like,
like I am though.
I have to kill whole families now.
He's,
I have to pay attention.
he's the original I am him.
Well, like what's
I am him.
one
I
of
am the red dragon.
one of my favorite parts in the movie is where Will Graham climbs up the tree
Oh, he's
to
like, you saw him at
figure,
night, didn't you, you son of a bitch?
yeah, to figure out that the serial
You
killer.
looked in on him?
Right. Oh
Oh,
man,
At Charles Leeds' house. Oh, dude, anytime I hear the name Charles Leeds, I
that's
fucking lose my mind. I'm
that's
like,
incredible.
no.
That's an awesome reference.
No, I think you're right though, Green. That's the obsession scene.
And that's where he starts to like.
He loses it.
That's the reason they hired him, and also the exact moment where everybody should be fearful of Will Graham just as
Yeah,
like
I might have to kill to feel what it's like. You're like, don't do that.
exactly like he's so
Don't.
into it. He was like, look, he's like busting people for cocaine is cool, but what would really make me understand would be if I did the entire bag of cocaine. And
He's like, he makes Sean Penn's method acting look timid.
yeah, like like Will Graham is like becoming you're basically watching him become a serial killer and resisting the urge to become a serial killer
Exactly.
while
That's
trying
what
to
makes him
capture
great.
while
But
trying to capture a serial killer. Like
but
it's pretty awesome. I mean,
I'll tell you what, the funny part about it is like if you talk to people about who the hell is William Petersen, what like Manhunter, I'm like, he's the guy on CSI. They're like, oh. I'm like, dude, he's known in our country for C fucking SI.
I know like and and
And he
that
should be known for Manhunter.
yes, and the CSI character is like like the diet.
It's Will Graham for Karens.
Yeah, it's like the diet right version of
Exactly.
what this Will Graham thing is. It's like like I want to see him being on the edge of being a serial killer himself.
Exactly. And that's like I think that what makes his scenes for me more believable. I think there's a lot of people debate like who's better, Brian Cox or Anthony Hopkins, and I don't think you can deny the greatness of both. But I think the scenes with Will Graham and Brian Cox work better because you believe he's that obsessed. Whereas with Jodie Foster, she seems scared as shit. And
Yeah.
so for me, it's more of a tete-a-tete in Manhunter because I think they're both fucking crazy. Whereas in Silence of the Lambs, I think she's just trying to figure him out.
Yeah, there's less manipulation definitely going down with Will Graham because he's so unpredictable to the serial killers who rely on everybody else being very predictable to like pull off their
Right,
and stuff. And he's just so on the edge, like yeah, like you're saying, like he's going toe to toe in the middle of the ring with Lecter, whereas like,
right.
he's just kind of toying around with the Agent Starling.
I agree. And I think that's what makes it so good. Plus, I mean, that's the first time too. I think you see a little bit in Thief, but and I didn't see The Keep. I tried to watch The Keep with Scott Glenn, the movie he made before this, and it's not good. Anyway, this is the first movie where I saw like his color, like the Michael Mann color stuff started coming through. The
Yeah,
blues, and the darks and the neons and everything's dark and you feel like you're immersed in this like weird dark culture. I mean, you see it in Miami Vice, you see it in Collateral, you see it in Heat. Like this was kind of started his crime template, as a director. And I think that's I don't know. I just think it's a crime that more people haven't seen this film.
yeah. When you
Brian Cox is amazing.
well, with the I think I like what you were talking about with like the colors and things like that. He also like does a lot of those like he'll cut like a triangle of the viewing,
Right,
area with like just darkness, and then the other
right.
piece in there is like light, and then obviously you're paying attention to that much more. And he's like, I mean, we could probably do a two-parter
No,
on
but maybe it's his
on
take. Maybe it's his take on good and evil. There's always two people, in a scene like that. There's always two pieces. I don't know. I'm not a film student. I just love movies, man. Like bottom line for me is every time Manhunter's on, the true test for me, I'll make it simple, is if I'm sitting there and I'm flipping through channels and I instantly stop and not just stop, but watch you in your entirety, then you're in my top. You're in my list.
yeah, you're on the you made the cut. Like
And
that's like
Manhunter's one of them.
yep,
You
Manhunter
know,
one of them.
So I guess real quick before we do the top five slide, my least favorite part about Manhunter is probably the Chris Elliott scene. And it's not that I don't like the scene, it's just it makes it so hard because you're like, wait a minute, that's fucking Chris Elliott from SNL and Cabin Boy. So because I didn't see it till after Cabin Boy. I didn't see Manhunter till after I'd seen Cabin Boy. And so I was like, what the fuck is going on? But the best parts to me is like when he starts obsessing and like you said, you watch him turn into somebody that's just like Francis Dollarhide. So for me, it's definitely unfucking believable. And the start of what for me was Michael Mann, like, oh my gosh. And then when Heat came out, I was like, all right, enough.
Well, and I think one of the things too about this movie is it boils up to that very large like action at the end of the movie.
In the Mars Volta apartment
Yeah, yeah, the Mars Volta apartment
slash ranch
with
home.
with Inagata Devita playing.
I
And,
love
and
it.
and those scenes are amazing. And but like it doesn't start out with like huge action like a lot of movies start out these days where they give you something flashy and
Right.
then go from
It's
there.
just a conversation on a beach.
Yep, this like works its way into that tension. And so like I think and I also say this too, I'll address the elephant in the room. This was remade
Yeah,
at
with
the
Ed
Red
Norton.
Dragon with Ed Norton and Ray Fiennes.
Not
Um,
good.
it's not. It's that movie, I think, doesn't even hold a candle to this movie.
No.
And it had better script, or not a better script, but it had like, better cameras, but like a bigger budget,
Millions of dollars of budget.
huge actors in those roles and everything. And this movie's way better just because
I
of
agree.
the performances and the tension and um yeah, like Michael Mann
Even
holds.
Steve, even Stephen Lang was early in his career as Lowndes. Like, because he was in Don't Breathe, recently, and it's like, damn, he's been in movies a long time. It's like when he was in Don't Breathe, people are like, who's that guy? I'm like, that's Freddie Lounds. What do
Oh,
you mean, who's that guy? It's Stephen effing Lang, dog. Come on
yeah.
now.
And the Tattler or whatever it is.
Oh, the Tattler.
So
Oh,
yeah, lots of good stuff
dude,
in the movie.
that. Hey, by the way, a side note before we do our top five, we got to do a whole episode about Rebecca De Mornay films
Or just the effect of Rebecca De Mornay on our
on
entire
my
generation
adolescence.
yeah, on adolescence. We're like, are we allowed to watch this?
He
I
puts the
can't
lotion in the podcast.
watch.
Oh man. Anyway, all right, top five. Creep factor for me, 9.5. Like, dude, it's so high. I can't give it a 10 because there's a little bit of a lull, maybe 20 minutes of the whole movie. But the tension, like you said, ratchets up high. And when you start seeing Dollar hide in that pantyhose, you're like, I'm an adult now. I've seen an adult film. I've now seen a movie that's for older people, and I'm scared as
I've seen
fuck.
something that's challenging me in many ways. Um,
It's like this will stick with me. Trust me, guys.
that's
You know?
that's hard to not stick with you. That look.
Anyway, so for me, 9.5. What say you?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I when I think of creepy films, this is pretty much the first thing I think of, and that exact image behind me I think of. So I'm putting this is my 10. Um,
Yeah,
my version
nice.
this is my version of 10, but a lot of it has to do with that pantyhose. We've seen it
It's
with other like stick up people or whatever, but this isn't stick up. Like he's just walking around his house like this and showing up
right.
and being
He's like,
murdered.
he's like, this is my loungewear.
He and the way he kills Freddy, or is
Oh,
like, and he by strapping him to a wheelchair and setting him on fire and then sending him down a well. Like it's an amazing demise. It's been very thought out and it's so awful. Um,
and I love it.
yeah, so
So I already said that for me, it's definitely in my top three. In any order, depending on the season, Manhunter, Collateral, Heat. So for me, it's way up there in his echelon.
yeah,
Now, I will be honest, I'm not a big Last of the Mohicans guy. I'm not a big Ali guy just because I don't like historical films as much as the layperson. So maybe a lot of people would work those films into their list for him. For me, it's all about the colorful, gritty crime films of Michael Mann. So for me, it's definitely in his top three. What say you, Greeno?
yeah. This is it's hard to pick one over the other with this one or Heat because Heat's so awesome.
Oh,
But um part of like
bang, 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 bang.
there are parts of Heat that like make me sad because I'm like rooting for like Val Kilmer's character so
I
hard.
know.
So I
Well,
probably put this one as my number one Michael Mann film too. Like
I can understand.
this is like one of those like you said like I have now watched an adult film. Like this is one of those
That's what you
films.
felt like.
This is like one of those films are like too where like I also watch it and I'm like I like this because I like this, not because like other people like this.
Right.
Like
Well, it's funny you were talking about slasher films when we talked earlier on our last Zoom call, and it's like I had seen Friday the 13th, and then I saw this, and I was like, this is a different kind of scary. This isn't like blood and guts. This is like, this guy could really be in my fucking neighborhood, dude. What if Dollar High lives on my street?
yeah,
Like to me, that's what I mean by adult. Like it was a different kind of scary, in my opinion, you know. So anyway, what about side players, dude? For me, obviously Tom Noonan, number one side player all time in this film, but I also think Joan Allen was really good as the blind victim. But for me, Tom Noonan
yeah.
steals it.
Yeah, I mean, and I was gonna say Joan Allen too, because when
Oh,
she is
Stephen Lang, I guess.
in the scene with with Dollar Hyde, and she's like petting the tiger and everything.
Oh,
He stands up and he's like, "Yeah, come back to my apartment or whatever." And and like she's walking around, and this dude is about to do something bad.
and you can't do anything about it. It's
Can't do
uncomfortable.
nothing you can do. Like the tension
It's
is up
uncomfortable.
all the way up, and she is so she plays like innocent and sweet and scared so well in that movie. Like, yeah, she's fantastic.
Yes, agreed.
Shout
No,
out to
it's
Brian
pretty.
Cox. Like, I do think he's awesome as
Oh,
Lecter.
of course, but I don't consider him a side player. I think he's one of the. I think him and Will Graham are the main players, so I didn't even consider him.
Yeah.
What about that one scene? For me, like I said, there's two, and I can't do 1A, 1B. It's the nighttime jogging scene where he takes that guy out thinking he's the, Dollar Hide, and then it's the jump through the window slow mo. Like that scene sticks in my head. I think about that scene randomly driving around because it affected me. So for me, I can't do one. I can do 1A, 1B.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that scene at the end with the Inagata Vita and the jump through the window.
Oh,
He times all of that so perfectly.
you are right.
Uh, I would say like I'll pick the different scene and say the scene where he's in the hotel room watching the videotapes because like you said, that's where he starts to kind of like really understand who the Tooth Fairy is, and
Yes.
and uh and it's creepy the way he puts it together where he's talking about taking off the rubber gloves and that the
You took off
talcum
the gloves,
powder
didn't you?
is on the skin of the victims, and that's why he knew that because he had to touch them with his hands.
Right.
He had to touch them, and he gets so angry
And a videotape.
and he's screaming at a video cassette tape
It's so weird, but
in
it's
like a
so
hotel
uncomfortable.
room, and and he's like, and he's just his eyes are just like on fire in that scene. Yeah, so
I
that's
think in that scene, I think in that scene for me, at least, and I think it took me a few viewings to get to this point, but that's the scene where I'm like, look, I don't like this Tooth Fairy guy, but I don't like Will Graham either.
right.
He's
Like
crazy.
that's where you're, that's
Like
where
everybody in this movie's not good.
that's where the worry. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
what everybody was worried
You're
about.
like,
Did we just release like a cobra to stop a tiger?
exactly.
You're
Oh,
like, I
speaking
don't
of
know.
Cobra, that the producers of Cobra stole the Tom Noonan pantyhose idea when he's like, for their killer.
There's like
You
look at
know it.
there's like look, give him the red dragon pantyhose. Also, give him this weird knife.
Yeah, and then that's scary as shit.
It's got spikes on the handle just in
And
case the
then
knife part didn't
he,
work enough.
he needs spice because he's taking on Marion Cobretti.
I know, dude.
You know,
That's an entire podcast. That's not
it
even
is. All
over.
right, so what do we? So my trust rating on this is definitely 9.5. I know you might go 10, but this would be people say, "What's a movie I should watch that I wouldn't know about?" But and I'm like, "What do you like?" And they're like, "Oh, I like crime." I'm like, "Oh, Manhunter." Like I go to it right away.
Yeah, yeah. I would say yeah, 9.5 because I think like there's enough like I wouldn't go 10 just because I think that there's enough it's an older movie so some people aren't going to connect with that but
Right. And if it wasn't Kim Greist as the wife, but someone, you know, the more on the
well it's like
slizzy hunter.
here's something for you. It's like you felt like in that movie at some point in time she smokes a cigarette or something like that.
Right, right, right,
No, she smoked about as many cigarettes as me, which is none. It's like
right.
she like
She's
just
like,
does not look like
"Bleh."
it just does like the mechanics of her like operating a cigarette was like I'm
It's
just like,
bad.
oh, man.
It's
That's
like that. It's like that actor on the Centrum commercial who opens the vitamins with like his index fingers. Watch it next time. He like twists it. Like instead of just twisting it, he like uses his index. He's like, "Oh, let me get the Centrum." Like, dude, what the fuck?
no
Anyway,
one does it like that.
no one. Wegovy. I guess you got to either get Dupixent, Wegovy, Ozempic. What else? We'll do a whole
Guy
episode on drug
Rizzi.
companies. Yeah, Sky Rizzy. Things are getting clearer. I can't see. Anyway, um,
Nothing is everything.
yeah, like the guy's like roller skating. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna play the banjo with your street band." It's like, what? Because you took Sky Rizzy, now you know how to play banjo
I'm just
in a
gonna. I'm
street band?
with Duplexant. I run down the street and just randomly score a soccer goal in some kid's game. That's our.
Oh shit. Hey, speaking of sports, our next episode, you gotta come back and see us because you know what we're doing. We're doing something really fun. We're doing the last Boy Scout, which isn't soccer, it's football, and it's probably gonna split the room a little bit, but we put it in our echelon of greatness. Even including the guy that invented Tybo in the first 10 minutes, which we'll discuss. But Green, are you excited about Last Boy Scout?
I am super excited about Last Boy Scout. And,
Just because for 30, 40 minutes we get to go, hello, Joseph.
and we get to unveil the origins of the word bitch slap. It comes out of that.
Oh, exactly. Dude, I could watch, that's one of those movies I could watch over and over and over. Anyway, we'll get to Shane Black, but hey man, great episode and make sure you tune into Lost Copy. One of these days we'll have everything finalized, Green. We'll have like the theme song, we'll have the our advertisers, we'll have our rap, but we're getting there. So this is fun, man. This was fun.
Save your money up because we'll have merch and stuff at some point in time too. But yeah, thanks for
Merch. Of course we'll have merch.
talking.
We're not talking 100% heavy cotton Gildan merch. Okay.
I want this
We're not we don't do Gildan.
this T-shirt
Okay.
will be
We
three
do
pounds. Um,
yes. We get district or next level or Bella Canvas. We're gonna do it right.
that's,
That's right. You can tell I'm a coach
yep.
because I know my gear. All
That's
right. We do tri blend. We do a nice tri blend.
yep. Something that stretches maybe.
Like Dollar Hide's pantyhose.
Yeah, that's hopefully we'll have that Andy's face under some pantyhose here soon for everybody to buy.
All right, I gotta go, Greeno. Hey, this was awesome. I'll text you tonight, and when I'm sure you send me a link to this, and we'll chat.
All right, man. Sounds good,
All
dude.
right, peace. Yep, later.